are the Lords of Secrecy?
The Lords of Secrecy are the leaders of the nation's national security and intelligence institutions. They're the people who have the power to create secrets under American law, and they use this power to enhance their own position in Washington and to seize the ability to make critical decisions about national security matters that used to be made as part of our democratic process.
Mike Revelle, the former Alaska senator who read the Pentagon, or put the Pentagon Papers into the record, making them public, called on Mark Udall, the outgoing Colorado senator, though it could be any senator, for example, like Senator Wyden of Oregon, who's also been expressed deep concern about the torture report and intelligence, to make the whole report public. Your thoughts on this?
I think that's an important next step. I would say the entire report needs to be public, although I think even those advocating that would agree that there would probably be some redactions of names of individual personnel, for instance, names of countries and of some sites. But I would go beyond that, and I'd say also the Panetta report needs to be made public. That is the independent document that was prepared inside the CIA as the Senate Intelligence Committee was preparing its study, which reaches on the basis of the same materials exactly the same conclusions, and shows that even the CIA does not believe what is being claimed in its name by Director Panetta, as well as by the former directors, Tenet and Hayden.
Do you think John Brennan should be fired? Do you think George Bush, Dick Cheney, George Tenet, and others should be put on trial?
Well, I'll start just with the CIA and the senior leadership of the CIA. About 100 years ago, famous German sociologist Max Weber wrote a thesis in which he said that national security bureaucracies will use secrecy to cover up their mistakes and errors, and as a result, incompetent people will invariably rise to the top. And this is a reason why the use of secrecy has to be checked very carefully. And I think Udall's correct, because we see this very, very clearly in what's happened within our CIA over the course of the last 10 years. People who were involved in this torture and black sites program rose absolutely to the top of the agency, and they're still there, and that's shocking. I think had the public known, or had even most of the senior leadership in Washington known what they did and their mistakes, they never could have achieved these positions. So I think it's obviously the case that there should be a review of the senior echelons of the agency to remove those who made serious errors and who broke the law. And I think there's a very, very serious question about John Brennan. He may or may not have been involved in the program. He certainly tells us he wasn't. But he has misled the president and the Congress about what's going on. And in responding to the Senate committee report, he strode to a podium at the CIA and shoveled an amazing load of falsehoods. I mean, obviously untruthful statements in response. That's just shocking conduct that really should not be tolerated. And as for Dick Cheney and George Bush, I really don't think I can add anything to what Colonel Wilkerson and Richard Clark have said. I mean, I think you look at the report, it provides very persuasive evidence that torture was used to produce false evidence to justify the invasion of Iraq. That's buried in footnotes in the report, but it's there. It's very, very clear. And that's a shocking, it's a humiliating fact for the United States, and it's a fact that should have consequences.
Talk about drones and the art of stealth warfare.
Well, I think that the use of drones it's very significant. It points to the way we've redirected our entire attitude towards waging war today. We prefer covert war. We give the CIA a greater and greater role in waging this war. The CIA has become the opposite of what it was established to be in 1947, which is an intelligence analysis shop. Now it's focused very heavily on operations, and many of them sustained, like this drone war, which is a 10-year war. Now, the CIA gets to exercise that control by saying everything is secret. It's covert. It can't be discussed publicly. And as a result of saying that, the American people actually know much less about what's going on in Pakistan and about the strikes and the consequence of the strikes than people in Pakistan know, or even people in Europe and other nations know. And that's because of the American media's hesitancy to report on it. So we have not had the sort of policy discussion that we really should be having in this country about whether the use of drones in Pakistan is effective or whether it makes sense in terms of U.S. foreign policy. And I think the case against drones is a very, very powerful case, certainly in the case of Pakistan. Because in the bottom line, what you've seen since the drone war began is a transition in public opinion in Pakistan where the entire political spectrum is united against the United States, really an unbelievable feat for the U.S. to have accomplished. So we've turned a major nuclear power against us. And whereas these terrorist groups were operating at the margins in tribal society with friction with many of the tribal leaders, we've allowed them to consolidate their relationship with the tribals by striking these areas and killing a large number and wounding a large number of people who are innocent and are not connected to the terrorists. So it's caused a bonding. So that's all unforeseen consequences, but foreseeable consequences. And the public debate probably would lead to a decision to discontinue this operation.
You write about the path to quasi-war, Libya and Syria. What's happening today? Well,
I think the most disturbing thing overall is the way the country now processes a case for a new war. And I discuss at some length what happened with respect to Libya in 2011 and what's happened repeatedly now with respect to Syria. Historically, the administration would make a case for war. The president would go on television with an Oval Office address and explain why he thinks operations are correct. Congress would have debates and would vote support or vote its opposition to the war effort. And what we have now is a president, a White House that wants to avoid this sort of framing. We do not get these sort of Oval Office speeches from President Obama anymore. And a Congress that uses this as a political game. So people want to score partisan points off of it one way or the other. But Congress does not engage in its important deliberative function. So the democratic process of decision-making about war and peace has simply been short-circuited. And the fact that that Vice President Cheney, former Director Hayden, Jose Rodriguez, and similar people command so much of the airtime in the United States to discuss this issue, in my mind, is amazing. They command it. They've had the lion's share for many, many months now, and we see ineffective questioning, and we don't see their statements being balanced by critics in any effective way.